If it's your first time to London and you're feeling a little bit nervous, don't worry. I'm gonna tell you about the common problems and mistakes that people run into during their first few days here so that you don't make them yourself. And I asked some of our community members in the Local Guide to London's Facebook group what they ran into when they first came to London, so they've helped me out with some of these answers. The first one comes from Geneva, who said, I tried to see so much in 6 days that I spent a lot of time going from one end of London to the other in one day, spending a lot of time on the tube or buses instead of appropriately planning my days around the area I was in or nearby. Geneva, this is very common. Don't worry, a lot of people do this. When you're planning out your itinerary for a day and you want to get between each of the things you want to do and see, use the City Mapper app, or you could use Google Maps as well, to figure out how long it's going to take you to get in between each of the things you want to do. Also, make sure that you adjust for the time that you're going to be traveling, because it will likely take you longer during rush hour, so just adjust that in the map so it can give you a bit more of an accurate timing. The absolute best way to make sure you're not spending a lot of time on public transportation each day in London is to pick 1 or 2 close by areas to explore. That way you can just walk to each of them and do your exploring that way instead of having to hop on the tube or on a bus and spend loads of time on that every day. The next tip comes from John, who said, our biggest mistake by far was not pacing ourselves. On one hand, we saw tons of sights, however, we were exhausted by the time we hit Paris. Pace yourselves, London ain't going anywhere. I'm always telling you guys not to over plan your visit here. I get it, there's so many amazing things you want to make sure you do and see, and you only have a limited amount of time, but I'm telling you, if you're dealing with jet lag, if you're on public transportation all the time, that's gonna wear you out. If you're doing lots of miles of walking, you're gonna be really tired, and that's not gonna be so enjoyable. Don't forget, this is your vacation and you wanna have a good time and be relaxed and not exhausted. Another reason I say not to overplan is you wanna make sure you leave time for things that you discover once you arrive. You might be walking around one day and see a museum that you'd actually like to spend a couple of hours in, or a shop that you wanna go check out, but if you've overplanned your visit and you have to get from place to place pretty quickly, you won't have any time to find these little hidden gems that you've discovered along the way. And in my opinion, those are some of the best parts of London. So give yourself a chance to experience some of these great moments. By the way, this video is part of my 3 Days in London series, which will help you to have a great first 72 hours in London. And it's to celebrate my new 3 Days in London itinerary. I'll tell you more about that towards the end of the video. Okay, Rob said, for me, a planned activity on the first day was a mistake. After a red-eye flight in economy and a 7 a.m. arrival at Heathrow, it was a bit rough. Better to just explore the first day and play it by ear. That's a great tip, Rob, and a really good point. So if you're gonna be flying internationally across a few time zones and landing early in the morning at the airport, give yourself a break. Don't have anything crazy planned for the day. You do want to do things so that you motivate yourself to stay awake so you can get on London time. However, don't plan anything that you would be really upset that you didn't really enjoy because you were just so tired. The city can be super overwhelming when you first get here, and I think a lot of times that people, when they come to visit, get a little uncomfortable and they stick to things that they know. So if they see like familiar restaurants or clothing brands, shops or stuff like that, they end up only visiting and checking out those things as opposed to exploring beyond and seeing what London really has to offer. Especially if you're gonna be in very quote-unquote touristy areas like Piccadilly Circus, Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square. Do your research ahead of time so that you know some really good places to eat, to have a drink, or if you want to do any kind of attractions around there. On that note, if you're trying to find a good place to eat or to drink in one of these areas, I don't recommend relying on the TRIPADVISOR app. Sometimes it can be helpful, and I know it's easy to go to when you're in a pinch, but I've had a look on there and there are some really amazing food spots around these areas that don't even crack the top 20, and there are some places that don't really look nice at all that do and are frequented a lot by tourists because they're high up on TripAdvisor. Know that TripAdvisor, the algorithms can be skewed. It can be easily manipulated. I mean, I read an article the other day about a woman who faked a restaurant in her shed in London and was able to get it to the #1 spot for restaurants in London that people were calling her up asking to make reservations. My point is that you'll miss out on some amazing hidden gems here if you only stick with TripAdvisor recommendations. So do your research, see if you can get some recommendations from local Londoners who actually know good food spots around the area because they know the area really well and they live here. And yeah, don't get stuck in the TripAdvisor trap. If you're like, Jess, I feel so overwhelmed with trying to plan my first few days in London, oh my God, help me, then you need to have a look at my 3-day London itinerary. It's a flexible, non-overwhelming plan for your first 3 days here. It combines some of the top things to do and see in London with a bunch of really great local hidden gem recommendations. In a feedback survey, one of my itinerary users said, I really like how detailed the itinerary is. It's full of so much information. I can't wait to use it for my trip to London in June 2018. Thank you so much. And if you want to find out more about my 3-day London itinerary, you can click the card that's popping up here or the link down in the description. This video is part of a 4-part 3 days in London series that will help you with your first few days in London. To watch another video in this series, click one of the videos that are popping up over here.